Hey everybody, I'm Tim Mooney. If you're a student of English, Shakespeare, history, Rome, Julius Caesar, or the theater, or just want to understand any of these a little better, you'll want to stick around to hear how you can finally get Friends, Romans, Countrymen, Part 2. Today, I'm working my play Breakneck Julius Caesar back up into performance shape, and that gives me a chance to think about the many issues that weave their way through this play. I'll be performing this show Sunday and Monday, August 30th and 31st, 2020, 9 p.m. on Facebook and Zoom respectively, and then again Sunday and Monday, November 8th and 9th. If you're watching this video after those dates, please swing by my website at timmooneyRep.com to check in on our schedule. If you'd like to see my first take on Julius Caesar, I did a broad overview of Shakespeare's play called I Finally Get Julius Caesar, which you can find here. I've got some pretty quirky, somewhat radical opinions on it, so it might set off a couple of light bulbs for you. In my second pass, I went through Brutus' speech immediately preceding Friends, Romans, Countrymen. More on that in just a moment. So here we go with I Finally Get Friends, Romans, Countrymen, Part 2. Last time around, we never quite made it into the actual text of Friends, Romans, Countrymen, the greatest speech of all time, my opinion. So this time around, I'm going to tackle it head on. But first, we need to know the rules. Antony and Brutus reached an agreement in Act 3, Scene 1 just after Caesar's assassination. Antony fully expects that he is next on their list to be assassinated. He was, after all, very good friends with Caesar. Brutus is confident that, with Caesar dead, Antony can do no more than Caesar's arm when Caesar's head is off. Satisfied by Antony's expressions of flattery and subservience, Brutus assures Antony that he will, in fact, explain their reasons for killing Caesar once the multitude, the crowd outside in the forum, has been appeased. So, Brutus wants to make sure that the crowd is appeased before explaining his reasons to Antony. In fact, assuring Antony that his reasons are so very good that if Antony were Caesar's son, he would be satisfied. That's a pretty high bar. Antony can probably tell already that Brutus is maybe guilty of a little hyperbole here. But wait, once Brutus has appeased the mob, he will have them on his side and then probably won't feel so indebted to provide that promised explanation. Mark Antony needs very much for that crowd to not be appeased. And so he asks to speak at the funeral too, supposedly to give a proper send-off with words of praise for his old friend. Cassius tries to talk Brutus out of letting Antony speak, but Brutus overrules him. This play is full of mistakes Brutus makes by compulsively overruling every idea that Cassius comes up with, who, though he may have been a villain, at least understood strategy. Brutus sets up 3 rules before allowing Antony to speak. You shall not, in your funeral speech, blame us, but speak all good you can devise of Caesar, and say you do it by our permission. Brutus then goes off to speak to the crowd first, confident that he can win them over to his side, which he pretty much does. As I've said, I've covered that speech already, and you can find it here. And while you're at it, hit like or subscribe so you don't miss anything. Importantly, in that opening speech, Brutus established a couple of things. He insists that the crowd in the forum believe me for mine honor, and have respect to mine honor that you may believe. And then later he presents his reasons for the assassination of Caesar, and it turns out that it's only one reason. He buries it inside this one line, and then proceeds to dress up that reason with all kinds of blood-curdling talk about how Caesar was actually going to turn them all into slaves and ultimately leave them to die. He says, as Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. That's it. That's all that his argument boils down to. You need to believe me because I'm honorable and I'm telling you that we killed Caesar because he was ambitious. In truth, Brutus seems pretty ambitious himself, so his feelings about Caesar may be what we now call projection. Brutus' scare tactics about death and slavery have the crowd pretty much anti-Caesar by the time Antony hits the stage, but it also seems like Antony has overheard Brutus' reasons because he now sets about the task of unpacking all those reasons while mostly staying inside the rules. He can't blame the assassins, he can speak whatever good he might devise of Caesar, and he has to say that he's doing it by the assassin's permission. And yet, given that Brutus couldn't bring himself to stick around to hear Caesar being eulogized, he won't be there to stop Antony if and when Antony finds a way to violate those rules. Antony begins by calling Brutus noble and honorable. In fact, he calls all of the assassins honorable. So are they all honorable men. Caesar was stabbed 23 times, perhaps by 23 different conspirators. For all of them to be honorable men is certainly against the odds. Almost immediately, Antony fulfills rule number 3. He has to say he speaks to the crowd by the permission of the conspirators. That was actually kind of a stupid thing for them to insist on. Sure, they might want to clearly establish that Antony is not next in line to be in charge here, but it also reveals that the conspirators have seized power. If Antony is only allowed to speak by their permission, then they have set themselves up as the people who get to decide these things, and it may leave them wondering of just what other further constraints there are about what Mark Antony is allowed to say. Antony proceeds to lay it on thick, picking up Brutus' word honorable and repeating it 10 times through the course of the speech with greater and greater irony. Irony is when a statement seems intended to suggest the opposite of its literal meaning. It's like sarcasm, but more subtle. But first, he must address Brutus' one and only reason. Caesar was ambitious. And in the spirit of rule number 2, speak what good you can devise of Caesar, Antony tells us 4 things. Caesar was his friend, faithful and true. Caesar brought many captives home to Rome and shared their ransoms with the general coffers, that is to say, with the country at large, not keeping it all for himself. 3, Caesar cared so much about the poor people of Rome that when they cried, he wept. And number 4, as seen by everyone during the great celebration of the Lupercal 1 month past, he offered Caesar a kingly crown 3 times. Surely there is the greatest evidence of the dreadful ambition that Brutus warned us of, ambition that would reduce them all to slaves and to ultimate death. Except wait, Caesar refused the crown each time, and they all witnessed that. And yet Brutus had said, "Believe me for my honor, and have respect to my honor, that you may believe." But if Antony has, revealed that Brutus has told a lie, then all 3 legs of Brutus' stool are cut out from under him. Caesar was not ambitious, Brutus can't be believed, and since Brutus' honor was tied to our belief, we suddenly won't be able to hear the word honorable with regard to Brutus without heightened suspicion. From now on, the more Antony calls Brutus honorable, the less the crowd believes it. Little by little, Antony begins to bend the rules. The first time, it seems to be a slip of the tongue, as questioning the crowd's failure to properly mourn for Caesar, he bemoans, "O judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason." Of course, brutish sounds a lot like Brutus, and perhaps Antony finds himself inadvertently pointing off in the direction in which Brutus exited after his speech was finished. Antony regroups, pausing while the crowd gives thought to just how not ambitious Caesar was. Picking up where he left off, in addition to not blaming the assassins, Antony also tells of things he will not do. He will not stir the hearts and minds of the mob to mutiny and rage. Of course, the very act of saying that he won't makes them wonder whether or not they ought. Nor will he read them Caesar's will, which he just happens to have stumbled across, especially given how much it would stir the mob to great fevered expressions of exalted mourning for Caesar, kissing his wounds, soaking their handkerchiefs into his blood, and taking a precious hair off of Caesar's head as a treasured, if you'll excuse the expression, heirloom for their family. He notes that he would rather wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I would wrong such honorable men. Now wait again. It's one thing to wrong the dead. That ship has kind of sailed already. But to wrong us? How did we suddenly get involved? Suddenly, the crowd is all very insistent on hearing what is in that will. Antony resists. "'Tis good you know not that you are his heirs, for if you should, oh, what would come of it?" They clamor to hear the will. They are Caesar's heirs, and Brutus somehow failed to mention that fact? By now they are screaming to hear the will. Antony continues to resist in an incredibly brilliant adherence to rule number 1, that he shall not in his funeral speech blame the assassins. "I fear I wrong the honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. I do fear it." Literally, he does not blame the assassins. He blames their daggers. The crowd is going crazy. Honorable men, villains, murderers, the will, read us the will. So far, Mark Antony has stayed within the rules, and if news of just what Antony has spoken here up to this point should leak out to the conspirators, they would, at best, catch wind that Antony has not blamed them, spoken what good he could devise of Caesar, and acknowledged that he is speaking by their permission. Of course, given how much the mob has turned against them, the assassins will give little or no consideration to just how well Antony managed to stick to the letter of the law. They will probably turn their swords on Antony in an instant. So Antony is at the point of no return. He cannot stop at this halfway point. He needs to find a way to channel the crowd's energy into a movement. He needs them to shift from being really, really disappointed and, yes, very angry, into rising up against the murderers of Caesar. We're actually only coming up on the halfway point of this speech, about 500 words into an 1,100-word speech. And I try to keep these videos under 15 minutes, so we're going to have to come back to take one more stab at it with a part 3 to this video series. It is a pretty amazing speech, so I guarantee you it's worth it. If you'd like to see all of this speech within the context of the entire play, you can check out my 1-hour performance, Breakneck Julius Caesar, this Sunday, August 30th, 2020 at 9 p.m. Central on Facebook Live, and Monday, August 31st, 9 p.m. on Zoom. I'll be back to doing it again on Sunday and Monday, November 8th and 9th. After Labor Day weekend, first weekend of September, we will begin performing an hour earlier, doing our shows at 8 p.m. Central as a courtesy to our friends on the East Coast who maybe don't want to stay up so late. As you may or may not know, Breakneck Julius Caesar is one of 8 one-man plays that I'm performing in rotation. All of these shows are available to tour to your school, your theater, or your conference or festival, either in person or virtually. Breakneck Julius Caesar is also available as a book with lots more background information. As I said, I am Tim Mooney of the Timothy Mooney Repertory Theater, and we are a not-for-profit organization dedicated to inspire, inform, enlighten, educate, and entertain. If you'd like to support our mission, please swing over to timmooneyRep.com, hit the donate button, or join our Patreon campaign, which has fun perks such as books, t-shirts, coffee mugs, sometimes free performances at patreon.com/TimMooneyRep. Thanks for joining me. See you on the stage.